Hi, I'm Ed DiOrio, and this is Dingo Talk.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest, Ed DiOrio from Channel 9 in Steubenville, WTOV9 for the call letters. Ed, thank you for taking time. I know it's busy life for you, so to have a day off and be able to share it with us, I appreciate it, man.
Carlo, I do like to keep myself busy, but you know what? I know what it's like for everybody trying to make it in this industry and how this can be, and I'm always happy to share a story because that's at the end of the day, it's what I like to do, and that's how I got where I got today. So I appreciate you asking me on.
Absolutely, and that is what we do every week. So let's start. 2017. How does a guy from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, Hempfield High School, find his way down to Greene County, Pennsylvania, and Waynesburg University?
Well, I wouldn't say it was an orthodox track. It was really a sense of, early high school. I was involved in a lot of things. I played basketball in high school. Not that I was any good or that was going to be a career choice, but, I was in athletics and I also did high school theatrics as well. I was heavily involved with my high school musicals, my fall plays and such like that, and other improv groups and things. So I was very theatrically involved in as well. So come freshman, sophomore year of high school, and, my parents, I was blessed and lucky enough to have two parents that, just incredible job of raising me and my older sister. But, they were getting on me and rightfully so, and just asked me what I should think about starting to do. And, I wasn't really sure. And I was really, before I started looking into communications and the media aspect of a job sense, I looked into theater. I looked into possibly going into theatrics, and it was, well, I like to make the joke that, after looking into it and how serious and cutthroat that industry can be, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I can make it. Let's try communications. That's obviously a more stable one." But, it's funny. But when I kind of realized that I was just doing theater as a hobby and something that I really just enjoyed and not really was going to try to make money off of or try to make a career out of, when I realized that, we had a guy in high school, his name was Josh Zuzik, who was the PA announcer, and he was a senior when I was either an eighth grader or a freshman. And I remember like just watching him and with all his energy and excitement, and he didn't go into the field, but I was like, that seems like fun. But I was on the team, so it wasn't like, I didn't really think anything of it. And like I said, I didn't play much. So my sophomore year, I was only on junior varsity. So for the varsity games, after Josh had graduated, I asked my athletic director or whoever it was at the time if I could do it. And it started there with public address announcing basketball. Then it turned into them asking me to do junior varsity football, and then baseball and softball. And I think I did soccer and field hockey a few times. And, next thing I knew, I was PA announcing everything I could find. And, but the funny thing is too, that was it. Like my school, I know some high schools have like a more advanced television setup for their morning announcements and stuff and things like that. But my high school really didn't do much of that. So all I did was public address announce and theater. And honestly, those were the two biggest things that helped me develop, like, I like to think, who I am as a communicator today, so I like to think it's an unorthodox route, because when I got to Waynesburg, I like to say I was a raw prospect, because I didn't have a lot of time reading off teleprompters and going, doing radio shows and having the chance to do any of that. Really, the only time I got to do that was at Waynesburg University's sports broadcasting camp. And
but I got to stop you right there, because this is
sure. Yeah, I know I like to ramble, but
no. This is the third of this, and I said it to you before we started recording. This has become the Waynesburg pipeline, and it's interesting when the three of you that I've had on thus far, and the guy who hosts the sports camp, the sports broadcasting camp, that seems to be where a lot of your group that has come through the Waynesburg communication department. It kind of seems that you all went to this camp one way or another, or one time or another, maybe not overlapping, you and Jack, Jeremiah, but still that's a common thing here I'm seeing.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's a testament to the man in charge, Lanny Fratteri. I know you've had him on here before, and, I'm just one of many of his students who have been lucky enough to call ourselves that as students, but at the same time, some kids end up getting closer to Lanny than others, I would think. And that's just, that's whatever. That's how people are. But, I like to think I've gotten very close to him in different ways. And through different means. But I remember that week of camp, and I was with Jeremiah, who you've had on previously. And I didn't meet Jack at that camp, but I met him at Waynesburg because I went to the camp and said, this is where I want to go to school. And I think this is what I want to do. Because to be truthful, that was that week. We were sitting in seminars. We were learning a lot, from one of the best to ever do it, at least in the Pittsburgh area, if not all of baseball, but when we were there and we did start doing exercises, doing radio promos, television scripts, television interviews, things like that, it was my first real taste of doing that. Like I said, because my high school really didn't do anything like that. So this is my first real taste of doing things like that. I was obsessed. I was infatuated with the idea of thinking like, this is another way to let the showman and the charisma that I have, I'd like to, as humbly as I can say, I'd like to think that's a great way of translating that outwards, because before theatrics was the way for me.
Well, and I think that it kind of seems for you specifically, like you said, well, I didn't have the experience reading off a teleprompter or running a promo. No, you had the experience of, hey, I got to remember these lines because if I don't, there's nobody going to be there with it. It's not like you got a cue card. So for you, I feel like it was a more natural transition into, hey, I can do this and I can put my own pizzazz on it.
Yeah. And it's a spin because, you in theater, you have to play different characters. You can go from, like in my case, I can go from I'm trying to think, a beast that was transformed when he was a kid to a father of five, a family Jewish of five, and I'm the father, the breadwinner, everything in between, and trying to get past with that. Like that, there's the dynamics of different characters. I think looking back is what makes telling stories that are different in their own respect every day easier for me. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's an easier connection in my mind to say, okay, this is a more positive story. We take this angle of it. We go with this attitude for it. We tell it this way. This is obviously a more somber story. We have to do this. We go with this route, whatever, because you have to do that with a character when you're playing it. Ed DiOrio can't just be Ed DiOrio can't be Tevye. Tevye has to be in Ed, or if that makes sense. It's just, it's one of those things where like, I didn't realize how much theater would translate into this industry as much as it has for me. And people have told me that because I did theater into college a little bit up until the end of my sophomore year. And when my buddies and my friends from within the communications department would come and see the shows, days after they'd tell me and they'd say, that helps you tremendously. Like that's got to help. And I agree. I agreed with them. So that's, like I said, an unorthodox way of getting into this, but here I am. And it's really one of the most enjoyable things I've done between athletics, theater, whatever. It's one of the most, if not the most enjoyable thing I like to do for my life.
Well, and I want to, so now we're here at Waynesburg. That's your time there. And you just pointed out something again with the three of you. It's a theme. And I heard Lanny talk about it, and we're going to talk more about his class and your time with him. But this community feeling of Waynesburg, like, so you're telling you were in theater, but you had guys from the communication department that were people from the communication department that wanted to come support you for being involved in it. That seems like kind of a foreign thing for a lot of people in 2022. So it's a testament to what Waynesburg's doing. What is it about what makes that bond? What is the comm department doing that gets you guys that you're a family?
It's the fact that everybody has the same classes with each other. And, when I realized what I wanted to do with my at least with my college degree, and pursue communications with that. Obviously, Waynesburg wasn't the only school I looked at, and there were others, and there were others that definitely had their positive aspects to them that maybe Waynesburg didn't seem like they had, at least through a week of camp and a visit. But I think, and this actually kind of solidified it for me, because I had worked with a kid that went to Syracuse to do sports, didn't, but so I got to ask him all these questions. And basically where I'm going with this is the idea of a small school versus a big school. Waynesburg is a school of 3,000, give or take, students in total. The comm department is probably, between all the sports broadcasting, is just broadcasting people and like just journalists, not even counting like the graphic designs and them, like in PR. The broadcast side is probably maybe 50 to 75 people. So like everybody has classes with each other. Everybody sees each other every day. Everybody that's involved enough and does stuff with the campus TV station, the campus radio station, you pass each other and you work with each other in that regard. It's hard not to make friends. If you don't make friends, you're the problem. I don't know what to tell you, but
it's not like, them, it's you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but it's one of those things where, I look back and I'm just like, every single day, whether it was I was doing a TV show, whether it was I had a class that I didn't like, whatever, there was someone or something to look forward to because of it. And it really makes for community is the best word, because we all help each other. We all wanted the best for each other. It's like, I love hearing how much people from Waynesburg do around not just the Pittsburgh area, but nationwide. We have a lot of people who go out and really do great work. We have some, but we have people as far as, Montana, Wisconsin, Maryland, North Carolina. Like, it's crazy how much the reach is for a little school in southwestern Pennsylvania. Well,
and so about that little school in southwestern Pennsylvania, and we now have the department picture. Now let's talk about the guy that you said some people have a better relationship. Jack said that Lanny's very passionate, but sometimes it can come off as a little rough because he's so passionate about wanting his students to succeed. What were some of your experiences with him in the comm department?
I like to think that when I first got to Waynesburg and I was talking to the seniors and the upperclassmen, and they were saying things, where it was like, oh, you're getting to do this for the first time, or, oh, you're getting to do this for the first time. And I'm real excited, obviously. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I was like, okay, cool. And like some of those things that we would do for the first time would be for Lanny's classes. And one of which being like the first time you get to do play-by-play for a game of college ball, which is cool.
Yeah.
But that's his alley. That's what you're there to learn from. And that's the best thing that he can teach you. And, I went in, my first one was basketball, and I did rather well with that. I think just because basketball has always been the sport that has been my number one in life. So maybe I just caught on to that quicker. So I got a good grade on my basketball play-by-play for the first one. I was like, okay, I think we're doing all right. We get to the spring, we get to baseball. Not so much. That was a little bit of a struggle for me, at least at first. I'd like to think I've gotten a lot better since then, and I think Lanny would agree. But the first time I did it, he had his. We had our meeting, was sit down in our critique session, and he wasn't. I wouldn't say mean. I wouldn't say he was
stern. Would be a good
stern would probably be the best. Yeah, exactly. So, but a lot of people, like you said, and like Jack had said, a lot of people don't like taking that. And you know what?
Well, and Lanny himself said it too. He said that's not something that people, it's you're either going to take that or not. And depending on your coaches that you've had, I'm sure you've had a coach that did that to you as a basketball player.
Well, I said, yeah, absolutely. And like, I didn't see a difference in that. And I think too, I don't know if Lanny does. I don't think he does it with this intent, but I think the rule still applies. Having worked in television now as an on-air personality, if you don't do something good, people will tell you.
Yeah.
People will say it on Facebook. People will say it on whatever, and they don't care because they don't know you. Lanny cares because he does know you and wants you to be better. And you got to have thick skin if you're going to do this. And it's kind of upsetting, not upsetting, but it's kind of sad that that's the kind of industry it is. But guess what? If you're going to put yourself on a pedestal to be out there as we have to be in the media industry, if you're going to be like that, you got to be able to take what people are going to say about you, because you're going to put yourself on that pedestal of a platform. And Lanny, as much as anybody, knows that.
Yeah.
He hundreds of thousands of people have listened to him over the years. He's interacted and worked with the likes of Vince Scully and just, Bob Prince, some of the best announcers to ever grace microphones Lanny has met, talked to, and worked with. So if that guy wants to tell me what he thinks is best, however he wants to say it, he can say it to me anyway. And that's just, I think that's my mindset. That's what a lot of my buddies, really good friends and really good fellow communicators, such as Jack, such as Jeremiah, and such, we all agree on that. I think the people that don't agree on that, those are the ones that maybe find out that this just wasn't for them. But guess what? Here's the thing. If people can't see in that, if Lanny's stern teachings at times, if that doesn't show them, okay, well, maybe Lanny's doing me a good thing by being stern to me, because if I realize I can't take it, maybe I shouldn't be in this. And they don't get too far without, they don't graduate with a 4-year degree and then say, man, I don't know. I don't think I want to do this now.
What am I supposed to do now?
Exactly. I don't think there's really many instances of that. So I think for that, it's just another feather in Lanny's cap that I don't think he even intentionally has there, because that's just how he is. But he's helped a lot of people in that regard, not just as a critique for us to get better, but to help kids realize what they should do with their skill set, their personalities and such.
Well, and you and I pre-show, there was a specific project I wanted to get into, because we had talked about, timing and what do we do? How long does the show run? And I gave you the breakdown of how the show broke down. And then you shared an example. We also had Greg Brown on. You did a class project with him where you interviewed him. You said it was about 2 hours. And I'm sure for those 2 hours, you didn't really want it to end, but you also were like, oh man, I'm going to have a hell of a lot of editing to do on. So what was that project?
So we had to have a final project our senior year of college, and called it our practicum project. And everybody had done different things, whether it was a series of interviews with certain people, alumni, whether it was, an advancement. I don't know if Jack talked about his, but an advancement of, the productions of our sports for high school and colleges and such. The projects very much varied. It didn't really, it was very different for everybody. But I wanted to do something obviously that hadn't been done before, which, you want to be original. So I'm sitting there, first week of senior year, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I going to do for this practicum project? Because I knew it was coming. And I said, what am I going to do? And for some reason, the first thought that popped into my head was a documentary about Lanny. And I said, I'd never produced anything like that. I've never taken a documentary production class. I've never done anything like that. So let's put that on the back burner for now, because it was an idea, but I don't know, let's try to think otherwise and brainstorm some more. I tried, and nothing could get past that initial thought of a documentary about Lanny, because his story is just tremendous and rich, and just, it's the definition of what a good story is. The peaks and valleys, the highs and lows. I to this day will say it's the greatest story I've ever told to date, and I don't know if it's going to get topped. And that's just the amount of time I put into it, the amount of people I was able to get to contribute. I had like you mentioned, Greg Brown sat down with me for 2 hours to talk about Lanny. Lanny sat down with 2 hours to talk to me. No, obviously, and that was just incredible. And Steve Blass, Jim Leland, getting to meet the likes of those guys and interview them, and not only learn about the man that had me in that position in the first place, but to better myself. Like I found myself bettering myself because I was interviewing person after person, week after week. And you're right, it was a ton of editing. Like I had a few sleepless nights where I would stay up 24 straight hours to edit and get stuff done. But by the end, I was so proud of it and so happy with it. I mean, the production value is not great, but I mean, it's, for turning it around in 2 months, and Lanny himself, he called me after I showed it to him, because I let him see it before I showed it to everybody else, just so he could, for courtesy reason. And I remember sending him the link, him texting me saying he was about to watch it. And it's about an hour. It's on YouTube. It's called No Doubt, a Lanny Terry story. If you want to watch it, I'd appreciate it. But he called me like about an hour later, and I could tell he was like choked up. And he just said, that was one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for me. And that was the most rewarding thing I've ever felt, that kind of, because we all have our self-doubts about things, and especially myself with this. I self-doubt myself all the time with career choices. Am I doing
the industry for sure can do that to you, but factor in personal things as well that can.
Exactly. So, self-doubt was always there. But when I got that call from Laney that night, and he said that to me, and he told me, he said, I love you for that. That was great. And that kind of solidified. I'm like,
so I do have to
I can do this.
I do have to give the guests for the audience out there, for them of the dunk, because last night, obviously, I was finishing up my stalking research of you to make sure I knew what to talk about.
No, sure.
I did watch it. It's very strong. It grabs you very, it captures him. You're right. It just kind of, the peaks, the valleys. He tells the story. Leland and Greg Brown and the way that it's put together, and the quality doesn't have to be great because the stories are great. You're doing that as a class project, but it's something that like you said, Lanny's going to hold on to that. And so for those of you who haven't, go check it out. It is amazing.
Well, thank you, Carlo. And it's, it's something that I come back to, because there's a lot of values in that story that I learned from with a perspective eye, and that I really, reminds me of things from my family. And I'm sure I think everybody can at least find something that connects to them in that story, because when I finished it and I put it on YouTube and I put it out for everybody to see, I was telling all my friends. And when I say all my friends, I mean all my friends, not just the ones that like sports, because it's not a sports story. Sure. I mean, it's a big part of his life, but it's not his whole life. And the idea of going from where he was to where he went to where he dropped to where he is now, and how many people look up to him, including myself, it's the greatest story I've ever told. And I don't know if it's going to be topped, which is saying something considering I was 21 at the time, but I'd be okay with it because I've put so much time and effort into it. And I was really happy with how it turned out.
So, and I don't want to fast forward too far, but we have a couple other things we got to cover. Big wild things guy from what I hear.
Love the things.
Big fan. You were a big guy on the Fan for a little bit there.
As a board op, as a producer, yeah, I was lucky enough to work with those guys at the Fan, and I actually worked a lot more over on the world's first radio station, KDKA AM and now FM side. So between those two, stations and just the environment in general, that's a major Pittsburgh market newsroom that I got the pleasure to work with in a year for like a year and a half, and that was tremendous as far as from a professionalism standpoint, and just setting me up to somewhat have an idea of what I was doing going into my job now.
Well, and then being the MC, because that is what you MC, kind of the in between the innings, get everybody back into, or keep everybody kind of involved and engaged. Yeah. Does that come easier to you as well with the theatrical background, and kind of how did that come about?
For sure. It was my first ever internship out of college. I was the MC for the team in 2018. And, I loved it then. I had so much fun with it. Your job is to have fun, because if you're not, the kids and the families that come won't either. So my job was to have fun, make sure everything was in line, and don't mess up on the mic and you'll be good. And, I mess up on the mics to this day, and I've been with the team for 3 seasons now. And, but if you do it with energy, you do it with fun, nobody notices and nobody cares, because, I get, for as many times as, at least in my viewing area, I get recognized for being on their television screens as a reporter and an anchor. I get recognized out in the Pittsburgh area and here in my coverage area for being the MC. And it's fun, because, it's nice to know that that you are leaving a staple on those people. Cause I mean, I can tell you, it's not a Pirates game. It's not a familiar setting for like professional sports fans, especially in the Pittsburgh area.
Mm-hmm.
So every time we get audiences, I have to take the mindset of, what can I do to stay in their minds?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do to make them say, you know what, I'd go back there. I'd go back. That was a really fun night. I'd go back there. And I think we get that a lot. And it's cool to hear that when that's the case. So I take that challenge personally, and I take it, and I go and I say, what can I do today to make somebody smile? What can I do today to make somebody say, huh, and remember it? Because I don't think they're going to remember the players. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know if they're going to remember, the teams that they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to remember? And I take it personally to try and make it myself. And at the same time, it betters myself, because none of my content there is scripted. So everything I say is, they tell me, they're like, hey, plug this sponsor, tell them how to play the game and go. And I say, okay. And, it makes me better as a communicator that much more. That's why I do it. I do it kind of on the side now because of the WTOV having the number one priority, as they definitely should. But, doing it on the side still is very helpful, because any chance I get to be a communicator, I take it.
Now let's dive into TOV, because again, this Waynesburg pipeline doesn't just extend to the Pittsburgh area. There's a whole group of you in sitting there in Steubenville doing your thing. What is your day-to-day like with Channel 9?
It's crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of crazy that I was meant for, I like to think. It can go from, all right, we have this press conference at 10, this fundraiser at 1, and this at 2, and you work a 9:45 to 6:15 shift. You got all your ducks in a row. You do them, you report them, you write them. Your stories get run on the night shows, and you're done. And that's just a very easy day. Then you have your days where you go in and on a random Tuesday in December or like February, when nothing's going on and it's cold out and nobody's doing anything, where you have to use your contacts and your people in the areas that you work in to say, okay, what stories can I make? What do people care about, and start and make from scratch? It presents new challenges every day, whether it's, how am I going to tell the story I'm going to tell today, to what story am I going to tell in the first place today, to how can I, keep the same personality and energy each day. Mm-hmm. When you do something so much for so much time, like if you do something every day for, like in my case, over a little over a year, and for some of my coworkers' cases, 3, 5, 9 years, in Bill Phillips's case, I think it's like 40 years. You do something like that for that long.
Yeah.
I find a challenge in trying to keep the same attitude, charisma level, stamina. And it's not because it's a bad job. Far from it. What it is, it's just the repetition of it. Mm-hmm. That can maybe sometimes wear people down. So I try not to let that get to me. The whole storytelling aspect and telling different stories every day is a fun challenge. It's not an easy one, but I think it's fun. And I think I get through it rather easily. And, there's just different, the job presents different challenges every day, which can be interesting and can also be a challenge for sure. But that's just, it's a job that I've really not come around to. It's a job that I didn't know what to expect when I came in. And now that I know what I have to do, I have such an appreciation for all the aspects instead of trying to adjust to them, the adjustment period of just getting hired. You know what I mean? So now I have a real big adjustment, or a real big appreciation for the job and all the aspects that come to it.
So in this year, what would you say, what's the story that stands out? Like when you think of, oh, wow, that was a fun one, or it was weird, or it just sticks out in your brain. What's the story you covered that's just that one for the first year?
For the first year. So it's funny because, I don't know if a lot of people can answer it as easily as I can, but it was a day in either October, might've been September, but it was in the fall of last year. So I had still pretty green, pretty new. My camera guy who I work out of the bureau office with for the most part in Belmont County, Ohio, he was out for the day for doing something else. So I was on my own, just, running my own camera, doing whatever. And I get a call from my web editor and he says, "Hey, we got this press release from the Monroe County, which is the county over from Belmont. We got a press release from the Monroe County Sheriff about this guy that was naked, trying to break into homes and fought police with a homemade spear." And I almost fell out of the car. I was just flabbergasted by the description. So I said, "Okay, do you want me to go to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and try to get sound on it?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I said, "Okay." So I go to the sheriff's office, drive about an hour, and nobody's there. And so we have this press release. I have all the actual information, but you want sound to tell the story. You don't want to just read off the press release. So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I need video too. I need B-roll. I need video of something.
Yeah.
So I find the streets where this guy was running around, and I'm just shooting road signs and the roads, but I have no idea where this guy actually was. They just have the road names, and these roads are long. And so I have no idea what houses he was trying to break into, where the incident with the police with the spear happened. I have no idea about any of this. So I'm like pretty lost in the dark. I'm just trying to like collect some bearings and maybe try to make something out of it for that day. So I'm shooting off the side of the road. I'm shooting the one road down the line, and this house next to me, guy comes out and he goes, "Did you hear about the guy from last night trying to break into houses?" And I said, "Yeah, that's exactly why I'm out here." "Yeah, he got my window right there. Of the 3 houses he tried breaking into that night, or 2 or 3, whatever. Of course, I just happened to stumble upon the one that one guy tried to break into." And I said, "Sir, I mean, it's kind of a personal situation, but do you want to tell me about it? Your perspective?" And he goes, "Absolutely, I can." So this guy did an interview with me and described the story really well. And it was just the story ended up being very good because, I mean, like, it was told well because that guy was able to say, "Yeah, he tried breaking in twice and my dog got up and I thought somebody had shot something," and then next thing I know, all these cop cars, or there's all this commotion outside. And it just turned out to be a really good story because I stumbled upon the one guy
right
after
house,
not knowing any addresses. And, I led, that story led the shows that day. And that was excuse me, that was the one story where I was like, all right, that was interesting, but cool. So that was the one story where I was that'll always stick in my mind of first year reporting, naked guy wielding the spear. That's
homemade spear, nonetheless.
Homemade spear.
That's the
homemade spear. Yeah. So you don't get that story every day.
The last question I want to ask you, and it's for,
Okay.
you're a year in now, and there are a lot of people that come up through the ranks that they're trying to do the same thing. What's the advice? What's the advice from a guy that's 1 year in, that went through school, and now you're living out that process?
So I can't give advice, at least much advice, on the aspect of how to go about things in the industry and how to be your own character and be your own self or whatnot. Because I think I'm still trying to figure that out myself at times. But what I think I can relay to whoever would be listening or watching to that is wondering if they're fit for this. At least at Waynesburg, they always told us they're saying, the jobs are out there. You got to go find them. You got to be willing to take the extra step, do the extra work. It'll pay off, but you got to be willing to do it. And I've taken that mindset, and I still do. And it's worked out tremendously for me. I'd like to think up until this point, and I'm lucky enough to say that, I'm only an hour and a half from where I grew up now in Steubenville, and I'm still only 40 minutes from Pittsburgh, and that's like my hometown city or whatever. But, not everybody's that fortunate. But the thing about it is that, they tell you about the jobs itself. They tell you about the industry itself at college and just connections you make through the industry. What I think people don't talk about enough, how personal life overlaps with that. And this, with media specifically, media jobs, how your personal life really overlaps with that, and how far are you willing to go for your own path to really, like you say, oh, I want to go to Atlanta. I want to go to New York. I want to work at ESPN. I want to do this. Sure, we all do. But what are you willing to sacrifice for that? And that's a big thing. That's something I'm still like, I go back and forth with in my own head all the time. And, so I think the biggest piece of advice, maybe if I could put it in like a phrase or whatever, is, your path is your path. So don't think you have to go from market size 158 to 120 to 80 to 50 to top 25. Don't think it's just that easy, because A, it's not, and B, you don't know who you're going to meet, how they're going to impact you, and what's going to make you happy. Because you don't know, like, if you work in market size 158, if you have a family, you get paid enough, and that does it for you. Why would you change it?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I've found at my station or others that are like that. And it was an interesting little nugget to kind of take in when I first started working in television as an on-air personality. Was there are people like that, and it's not a bad thing, because you don't, like, I think maybe some people might think, well, this guy or girl is in their 50s and they're still working at market size 155 or 158 or whatever, that, oh, they must not have been that good to make it to whatever. Not even the case at all. Not even close to it. They could have a family, they could have close friends and relatives they don't want to leave, and this is just what they want to do, and they're doing it on a small scale. Yeah. A lot of people, and so I think, don't
limit just to the numbers.
Exactly. Have the ambition to and have the willingness to go where you need to go if you want to be successful in media. I'd like to think I do, and a lot of my colleagues do it from Waynesburg and such. But also don't think that the top isn't just the top of the industry isn't market size 5. The top of the industry is where you're happiest.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'm always going to have to carry and keep in my mind as I go on throughout my career, wherever that may go.
Well, and for me, I wish you the best of luck wherever your career takes you. As I said to Jack and Jeremiah, I wish all three of you the best as you kind of step by step in this industry. I want to say thank you for stopping by and taking time with us for the walk down your career and how we got to this point. For those of you at home or just listening, and I know I say this every week, but I just need to remind you, if you're listening right now and you haven't heard anything else, go back to the beginning, because we're about to end it. So you're not going to really hear anything. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartMusic, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. On Instagram's the only one that's different. You have to type in it's Dingo_talk, not just DingoTalk. Everything else you can find DingoTalk. I am Carlo Guadagnino, Ed DiOrio, WTOV Channel 9 in Steubenville. This has been DingoTalk, and we will see you next week, Chuckleheads.